the kinds of circuits that cause us to activate those 8 chemicals have another quality that's even more sinister, which is they don't have any shutoff valves. So when you start to eat, you literally can't stop. You literally biochemically can't stop. The other kind of circuits, the effective ones, they flicker and they stop all the time. You remain in control.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepeck, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness. And I think one of the things that I hear all the time from potential clients and people who share their dieting history with me, they say, I think there's something wrong with me. Everything I've tried, nothing works. I always gain the weight back. And in response, I always say to them, you haven't failed. All of those programs have failed you because so much of this process to finding health and shifting our relationship with food is chemical in the body, right? It's not this moral failing like we've been led to believe. Today, we're going to dig deeper into some of those chemicals and discuss tools or actions that we could take to help everything function properly, especially in times of stress, because we are certainly, it's always stressful, but the holiday season that's approaching is certainly stressful. So let me introduce you to our featured guest. She's a health psychologist, New York Times bestselling author, and founder of Emotional Brain Training, a neuroscientific program for rewiring the brain out of stress overload and into states of joy and optimal health. She developed EBT during her 40 years as a professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco. She is the executive director of the Solution Foundation, which conducts EBT research and trains health professionals and coaches to deliver EBT in their practices and online. Without further ado, I give you Dr. Laurel Mellin.
Hello. What a joy. Hey, Jenn. Glad to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
I think our timing for this conversation just couldn't be better. We have Halloween and then the holidays. It's Q4. Stress along with periods of over and under eating abound.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game the last 3 months of the year.
Exactly. So I want to start with your story and then we'll go from there. First, though, we just have to tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe this week is for chocolate oat flour banana bread. And I know people love the Trader Joe's banana and pumpkin breads. This one is about as easy. The ingredients are healthier. And dare I even say, it might even be yummier. So love this one. And then thanks to Dr. Laurel Mellin, who's here with us this week, you're getting like a cheat sheet to EBT. So Dr. Laurel, give us like the 30-second rundown of this worksheet, so to speak.
Okay. Well, as someone who struggled with food for 20 years before I figured this out, the issue is that the drive to overeat is biochemical. It's caused by the brain when the brain's in stress. And the sooner that we stop worrying about our food, and the faster we start saying, am I in joy or not? Am I in that state of connection or not? The more we turn off those chemicals. So it's a paradigm shift. We have to stop focusing on the food. The food is the tail end of a fight or flight circuit that's spewing chemicals that make you want to eat it. Turn off that circuit and those chemicals won't arrive. But as long as you're forcing yourself and evaluating yourself and punishing yourself for what you ate, you're not going to have the attentional control in your brain to focus on rewiring that circuit so you get lasting freedom. So what this does is 7 different points where you can go through and actually change your approach to food based on brain science, that it's really just a circuit. When you take care of your circuits, back to joy, out of stress, the food takes care of itself.
Love it. So that's your handout. And of course, we're going to walk through a lot of this in this episode. So if you want the handout from Dr. Laurel Mellin, or this recipe, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries for just $10 a month. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal because when you take advantage of the full offerings, you're going to save far more than that $10 cost. A no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, your membership supports this podcast and this community so we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries or click the link in the episode notes down below because that's easier. Once you're there, you click that little I agree button and then support now. Enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You're going to get this week's recipe for the chocolate oat flour banana bread and Dr. Laurel's EBT handout. Okay, let's start with your story. You started to touch on it, that you have your own history with turning to food for comfort. So will you share your story?
Well, agony. And you can imagine, I started off as an 11-year-old girl, really depressed, being ridiculed at school and coming home and eating cinnamon rolls, not just one, but 3 of them when I was upset. And at the time, I didn't realize that when I was reaching for that food, I combined that upsettedness, in other words, a fight or flight circuit in my brain, with my cinnamon roll circuit, and they came together to create this gargantuan drive to overeat with all these chemicals, so that I began to notice that food was too important to me, that I was thinking about food all the time, and I was more depressed and more hating my body and all the typical things. And so as I grew up, I decided to do something about it, which is to become a nutritionist. So I became a nutritionist, and I still am a nutritionist, but I soon learned as a faculty member at the University of California, San Francisco, I got lucky. I got a great position, and I was able to try to find the root cause of the drive to overeat. And when I found it, this was some years ago, the neuroscience hadn't really shown exactly why it was working. We just knew that children and adolescents stop their overeating, adults stop their overeating and other excesses. For me, as I began to develop this method, I realized it had to do with circuits in the brain where you needed to process emotions in a certain way. And I got past it. But I spent 20 years doing what we all do when we have a food circuit and also a body circuit, which means you're judging your body and your brain, which is we're chemically affected. I had no idea that it was chemical, and I was not free. And so I've been very dedicated since then. I started at 28. I'm now 75. And truly with emotional brain training, it's not, you learn how to connect to yourself and clear the stress and the stress circuits, because usually people have a food circuit, a body circuit, and also a mood or a relationship circuit or a work circuit. So you get in the business of seeing your life in a much more powerful way. You're just going to rewire any circuit that blocks you from your joy. And still to this day, I have 3 children now. They've all grown. And then when you have grown children, you have stresses because am I going to go back and see the grandchild or not? Am I going to do this or that? There's always stresses in life. So you have a tool set so that whenever there is something that separates you from connecting to the love inside of you and the strength inside of you, you never blame yourself. It's just a circuit. And you just learn how to use these skills and just clear them.
Yeah, I love it. And first of all, I so appreciate your own experience with this because like always, it's, like I say to our listeners and when I'm interviewed on other podcasts, I see you because I am you, and so I appreciate that from your story. And before we get into, sort of the circuits and, retraining them, rewiring them, let's take a step back to understand the chemicals in the body that drive over and under eating.
Great. Well, that's pretty easy. What happens is the emotional brain is the stress brain, and it controls our stress circuitry. There's a little structure called the amygdala in the emotional brain that collects all of our life experiences and puts them into circuits. And then, unfortunately, it has a mind of its own, and we can just be a little ticked off about something small, and this circuit in the brain gets activated, and we just do whatever we did before. And if it's overeating or judging our body or essentially going numb or whatever that is, it just does it for us. So with weight and eating in general, we think we're using our thinking brain. We know what we should do, but the real controller is our emotional brain. And so these circuits that are essentially activated when we're in stress do some really ugly things. What they do is first of all, they get stuck on. So you have 2 kinds of circuits in your brain, the kinds that work and the kinds that don't work. The kinds that don't work are the ones that cause you to get stressed out and to essentially get stuck there. So let's say that something has happened to you and it goes into your emotional brain and the circuit gets activated. Everyone has some of them. It's not like it's a sickness. Everybody has some of them. And it gets activated. What happens is it gets stuck on. So if you ever thought, well, I used to binge eat and I would start to eat and I just could not stop. And I would say, I have a psychological problem. If I ever went to a psychologist, I'm now a health psychologist, by the way, right. not clinical, but health psychologist, why people do what they do. And I thought, if they ever got a hold of me, they'd probably give me 5 different diagnoses. But it was truly just biochemical, just what you're saying. I mean, the kinds of circuits that cause us to activate those 8 chemicals have another quality that's even more sinister, which is they don't have any shutoff valves. So when you start to eat, you literally can't stop. You literally biochemically can't stop. The other kind of circuits, the effective ones, they flicker and they stop all the time. You remain in control. But when you do these, you get out of control. And so all those 8 chemicals come. The main ones that are important, the top 3 to 4 are the most important. And that is, the first one is cortisol. Now, we are cortisol junkies. What happens is our brain, from our hunter-gatherer ancestors, didn't realize that when we were stressed for psychological reasons that we weren't really hungry. So everyone has genes, our shared genes, that based on hunter-gatherer times, if we just start to get psychologically stressed, the brain tells us that we're going to die of malnutrition, okay? Because there's not enough food. Our hunter-gatherer people, they were dying because of malnutrition, undernutrition. And so what happens is it goes, okay, I'll cooperate. I'm going to activate these 8 chemicals so that you will definitely overeat just the sugary, fatty foods that are going to go to fat. And you will feel lethargic. You will be depressed. And whatever you do eat will tend to go to fat. And the first chemical is cortisol. That's the major stress chemical, cortisol. And so it's not adrenaline. Adrenaline is real quick. This can get stuck on, and this is what happens. So the cortisol gets stuck there, and so we really are hungry. It drains dopamine, and when it drains dopamine, that means we feel unrewarded. Humans only need 2 things other than to procreate, and that is we need safety, so we need to be out of stress, and we need to feel rewarded. So here we are, stressed out for no reason. Even a tiny, tiny stressor can activate the cortisol with these circuits, particularly if we've had difficult childhoods or later stressful episodes, or even right now we're in stress overload from all that's going on in the world and in our own lives. So that then causes the dopamine to go way low. It drains the dopamine. We have to be rewarded. We absolutely have to be rewarded. So what does the brain say? I'm going to remember that I'm under rewarded now. And when I reach for food, I'm going to hit the jackpot. And anytime you hit the jackpot where you get a huge increase in dopamine that's actually abnormal, the brain is going to over-remember it, create a circuit, and then try to get you to repeat it over and over again. The problem is, once you go way high with dopamine, built into the brain is something called the pain-pleasure pathway. If you go high, guess what? Right after that, you go low. The high from food only lasts 1 hour, and then you go low. And when you go low, you are desperate because you feel unrewarded. And so what are you going to do? If you used food before, you're going to use it again, or you're going to shop, or you're going to do something to get an abnormal chemical high. That causes more stress because we were essentially evolved to be people that were enjoying natural pleasures and enjoying rewards of purpose, not the ones that are so unhealthy. Well, the dopamine gets drained, and then that causes the serotonin to get drained. And when that happens, what happens? We are depressed. So we're kind of anxious from the cortisol, depressed from the serotonin. We are unrewarded, and we're looking around ourselves, and the only thing that's going to satisfy us, and this is why I love your program so much. I love your podcast, because when you're in that chemical state, you don't see the apple. You only see the apple pie with the ice cream and maybe some caramel syrup on top.
Right.
Your brain can't see the healthy foods. And it's so ludicrous because people say, well, just eat natural foods. And I say, really? If you're chemically affected by stress, there is no way you can do it. It's not that you won't do it. Your brain won't let you do it. So once that happens, you go for the sugary fatty foods that increase insulin. Once you've increased insulin, you are in trouble. And what's going to happen is your leptin is going to be blocked, so you can't release extra weight. The PYY, the ghrelin, and leptin, all of them, what happens, and the GLP-1, what's in the medications, it essentially is activated. So what happens is all 8 of those chemicals collude to make it virtually impossible for you not to overeat, feel bad inside, and gain weight. And it's all biochemical, and it's all affected by one thing: stress chemicals in your body.
Yeah. So I want to recap for a second, right? So those 8 chemicals, we had cortisol, dopamine, serotonin, insulin, leptin, PYY, GLP-1, and ghrelin.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So understand for everybody, like I want to reiterate it so that everybody takes this home. It is chemical that our response is to overeat or undereat.
Exactly.
And this is why, when I start working with a client, I focus on the food component first. Because when we start to shift the biochemistry, it helps us think more clearly. But we will never outthink this biochemistry, right? Because these chemicals are driving the bus. Would you agree?
Well, it's not about, you cannot think your way out of an eating binge. But the whole purpose of emotional brain training is to think differently, know it's chemical, and know it's a wire in your brain that's activating those stress chemical cascade, and use emotional skills to fry that wire. And when you fry that wire, it is gone. And you say, I feel so good inside. Why is it so much easier for me to eat healthy? It's because you shut off those horrible chemicals that were making it impossible for you to eat chemically. And you're feeling the dopamine from inside your own brain. So you have security. It comes from inside. It doesn't have to come from eating, drinking, or spending, or whatever you're doing to get a high that's going to cause a low.
Yeah. So I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question, because a lot of times we realize we're stressed. But then I also think most of us in our modern lives live 100% of this time and learn to function 100% of the time with this sort of baseline level of stress that no longer even registers to us consciously.
Exactly. There's 2 factors there. Number one, everyone has a different stress style. There are 3 different stress styles. One of them is to go way high. The other is to go numb, and the other is to go low. If you go low, like I do, you know you're stressed, but the other 2, you would have no way of knowing that you have those stress chemicals going.
What might that look like?
Okay. Well, false high, everything's fine. I just like food a lot, and it's okay that I have diabetes. And it's not a problem that I'm going in the kitchen and overeating while my partner is going in the other room and over drinking or whatever. We just love life. Okay.
And what does low look like? Yeah.
Low looks like what everyone knows: depression, anxiety, miserable. The world hates me. I hate the world. Everything's bad. And numb is just almost as treacherous as a false high, because it is, I have no feelings. I am numb inside. If you're way high, way low, or numb, there's all this business about mindfulness. Now, unfortunately, mindfulness does not deal with stress, so it's not a solution. It's fine for all these people that are maybe never stressed, everything in their life is fine, but who lives like that anyway? Because essentially, you need to be an emotional being. And so what we're doing here is saying, stop everything and take a nice deep breath and appreciate that when you're way high, when you're way low or numb, whichever your stress style is emotionally, you cannot connect with your body. It's called interoceptive awareness, and really be accurate and sensitive to your hunger signals. You can't even read them. And number 3, if you could read them, they're haywire, because your stress chemicals are raging and they're telling you a whole bunch of misinformation. So stop with this, I just have to kind of go with the glow, sit with myself. No, you have a chemical problem caused through no fault of your own by the wires in your brain, and you got to use emotional tools to switch them off. And you can switch them off in 1, 2, or 3 minutes on our app.
I love it.
Really, it's not as if you have to go to the top of a hill and try to quiet down. Emotions are very fast. And then if you want to rewire one, it takes a little bit longer, of 3 minutes. So you hit that circuit over and over again until you know that you've rewired it because you leave food on your plate.
Love it. Okay, so that's where I want to go next is some of these tangible things that we can do to rewire, right?
Absolutely.
To get into that action. So let's do that after we highlight our partner for this episode.
Great.
Big thanks to Layered Jewelry for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. The modern woman is multifaceted, taking on many important roles in the various aspects of her life. Inspired by her own multi-layered life as a busy mom, trendsetter, entrepreneur, and influencer, Amber Ridinger McLaughlin set out to create a line of luxury jewelry that lets women create their unique style and celebrate their own beautiful layers. Layered is luxurious and affordable, the perfect combination for the modern woman. Layered allows you to mix, match, stack, and dare I say, layer pieces that make you feel empowered and beautiful. Each piece is handcrafted to be luxurious, unique, and exquisite just for you. So the latest collection is called Timeless. It is exactly that. I'm obsessed with the bracelets. I love the Marissa. It's like 2-in-1 for $120. If you're thinking about gifts for people on your list this holiday season, I highly recommend Layered Jewelry. And you get 10% off plus free shipping for being a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. Simply text the word layered, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word layered, LAYERED, to 844-947-4846 to get this handcrafted, luxurious, yet affordable jewelry at 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Dr. Laurel, EBT is emotional brain training. And just before the break, you were telling us that we can do this in just a couple minutes. So where do we start?
Well, where you start is take a nice deep breath and first appreciate whether you really want to rewire your brain or not, because it takes learning how to rewire circuits in your unconscious mind, which is what therapists do, except you do it yourself with a support group. So essentially, if you go to, like I was saying, I thought, well, boy, with my eating, I'm going to be categorized with so many different diagnoses. Again, there's nothing wrong. It's just a few circuits in your brain that got locked in there, but you have to learn how to activate the circuit and then essentially open it up like a flower and then change that message and turn it into one of those circuits that's going to have you connect deeply with yourself and be in joy and shut off those circuits. So the skills themselves are scientific. They are in an app, and we don't sell the app. And the reason we don't is because, and I'm sort of tearing up when I say this, because you are learning how to rewire the motherboard of humanity, your emotional brain. And this emotional brain is the seed of everything that matters in your life. If your relationships are beautiful, if you're feeling spiritually connected, the health, everything that's important. So to do that, because it's the emotional brain, seat of the soul, and the social brain, you have to have someone who listens to you. You don't have to pay a therapist. You can do that if you want to. But in EBT, we have support groups. And you get into a support group, there's 5 other people and a certified EBT provider, and everybody's rewiring circuits. Now, a lot of people are rewiring food circuits and body circuits, and I can tell you about those. But it's still a life skill, like when you learn to floss your teeth, or when you learned how to kiss, or whatever the basic things of life are, you are going to learn how to do that. And major thing to notice is you start with doing everything your mother told you not to do. So as a health psychologist, I always thought, if you really just did something out of science, EBT is just pure neurophysiology and neuroplasticity, what would it really look like? And the fact that it looks like everything your mother told you not to do is why we have 80% of people stuck on food and having that block their joy. So here's how you do it. Let's say that I wanted to find my food circuit. There's a circuit in the brain that tells me, I got to have this food. It's going to give me safety, or it's going to give me power, or it's going to give me protection, and I'm going to get this huge high from it. So there's this message. I get my safety, something like really important safety, love, protection from food. But in order to rewire the circuit, it's in your emotional brain. I mean, everyone listening, if you think what issue you have about food, it's wrong, because the circuit that causes you to overeat is not in your thinking brain. It's in your emotional brain. So with EBT, you use your thinking brain to do this little skill thing called a cycle tool, and it finds the exact circuit that makes you overeat. You couldn't even do that with a brain scan. But you're using your emotions and these techniques, you could actually activate the exact wire that is causing the chemicals to drive you to overeat. But in order to do that, you have to do what mom said not to do, is you have to complain. That's all you have to do. You have to, like, for 5 sentences, you say, the situation is, I overeat. And, I tell myself I'm not going to, and then the night comes and all of a sudden, all I care about is the food, and then I eat it until I can't think anymore, and then it's another night. 5 sentences, that's all you get. No complaining here. More than 5 sentences, because what that does is it goes right to the bottom of your brain and it finds the exact circuit that was encoded maybe when you were 6 or 10 or 12 or 22 or 32, whenever that was, and it opens it up, and then you express emotions, angry, sad, afraid, guilty. It's very quick, and the brain actually lifts up and it brings up to your thinking brain at the top the exact words of that circuit. And in that moment, you have a spiritual experience, because you say, oh my God, of course I would be overeating. If my brain tells me I get my existence from stuffing myself with food, and the words in your thinking brain have to match the words in your unconscious brain, your emotional brain. And when it does, you get this aha moment, you get kind of a spiritual opening, and you really know yourself. But with that information, you go ahead and you essentially change the message repeatedly until you know you've taken that other circuit and crushed it. And your group mates in your support group, they're doing the same thing. So you're all helping each other. You're all inspiring each other. And then when you know the circuit's gone, it's because you simply are not trying to eat healthy. I suggest to you, do not try to eat healthy. What you want to do is you want to find the circuit that makes you overeat. And again, hit it with an opposite message of your choosing. And when you notice that you don't care about the extra food, your relationship with food is healed, you have rewired that circuit. And then you have something worth having, because it will be lasting.
Yeah. So walk us through, right? Like, I'm with you, right? We complain, we have the 5 sentences. We're identifying the emotion or the pattern, or right, like that trigger, right? That's that wiring.
Yes.
And then what's an example of the sentence we might feel or say, right, that rewires that?
Great. That's a very good question. And I want to just mention that the way that you stay present so that the emotional brain, the unconscious mind opens like a flower, is you must express your emotions. It's very fast. You say, I feel angry that I can't stand that, I hated that. And then sad, one deep sadness, one fear, one, hey, I have some power here. Why don't I just eat healthy? Boom. Unless you have that emotional process down, your mind will go blank and you'll start analyzing. You'll be back to your thinking brain, which is useless. So the emotional process, and this is what's so beautiful, is you would think in the world of nutrition, they'd say, well, you should just eat, these healthy foods. That's the solution. You now eat these unhealthy foods, or you eat too much, or you eat in the wrong way, and now you're going to eat differently. Biochemically, biologically, the opposite of any addiction, and these are addiction circuits. It doesn't mean we're necessarily addicted, but they are addicted circuits because they take us out of control. They're called survival circuits biologically. The opposite of any addiction, a strong drive, is not abstinence, it's connection. So the new statement, you always create yourself, because it has to be personalized to your values and your sensibilities and what excites you. But it's an internal solution. So an external solution, I get my safety from food and stuffing myself or obsessing about food or hating my body or whatever it is, to I get my safety, my existence, my power from connecting to the love inside of me, connecting to the deepest part of myself. And that kind of a message is biochemically very powerful. It goes from being an insecure attachment to a secure attachment, from an external solution to an internal solution. Your whole body comes, and afterwards you just sit there and there's a glow all over your body. You feel this glow in your body. You say, what's that glow? You've just shut off the stress chemicals that are making you feel terrible. And you're back to your natural state, which is to that sense of joy, that sense of connection.
And when we return to that joy and connection, talk about what happens to those 8 chemicals that we went through before.
So these 8 chemicals, they got ripped off. They're not getting dysregulated anymore. And what's happening is you're noticing that you feel so fulfilled and so wonderful because they've normalized. What happens if you have a very unusual situation? You have diabetes and you also need medications and whatever, that's fine. But with EBT, you have normalized all 8 of those chemicals to the extent you can naturally do it. If you need some additional chemicals later on, you can have them, but most people don't, because what happens is you keep on rewiring circuits until you are at a set point or a habit of being in a connected joy state, and it's natural. It doesn't take effort. It's just who you are because you've trained your brain for that. And the longer we allow the circuits of overeating to continue to affect us, not only are they harming us, but they're getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then we have to work harder and harder and harder to eat healthy. And then we just can't do it anymore, and we let go, and then we blame ourselves. So when people come into EBT, they stay the first 4 weeks, they learn how to turn stress into joy, and they start to use those emotional pathways in their group. And then what happens is then they rewire their food circuit. This is very important for your listeners. They first rewire their food circuit because it feels so good to not have that drive. And then all the great nutrition advice and sensibility, you can do it, not just think you should do it. And then they rewire a mood. There's 4 circuits. It's called the Big 4. Second thing is they rewire. Everyone gets stuck in a mood. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's depression. Maybe it's just feeling grumpy or whatever that is. But the brain actually has a wire that when you're a little bit stressed, it goes into that negative mood, and then it can't shake it. So you rewire that so you're happier. And then the next circuit you rewire is the love circuit. Because for all of us, when we're really stressed, we'll either get overly close and essentially disconnect from ourselves and connect to someone else and rescue them or please them or want validation from them. That's terrible for those stress chemicals. That just causes all 8 of them to go haywire. And then it also blocks oxytocin, so you don't get the benefits of oxytocin. So it's either merging and being overly close and people pleasing or rescuing or fixing, or being overly distant and putting up big walls. This is true for everyone. That's just what the brain does when we're stressed. So you rewire it, so you're much more likely to find that sweet spot of loving connection. So your chemicals are looking great. And then we take on the last of the Big 4. This is the most important one. Science is so clear about this, and I want everyone here to know that if you have rewired your food circuit, but you just simply aren't releasing the extra weight, or if you just know that all of a sudden you just kind of really want that food, like Three Musketeers bars, and you don't know why, you just want to, it's because you have a body circuit. There's 2 kinds of body circuits in your emotional brain. One of them is any body judgment. It's extremely important that whenever you go, like when I finally lost weight, it was at a time when I'd had EBT tools, I was having my second child. I had just gained 60 pounds because I just ate like crazy during my pregnancy. I mean, I would just eat anything I could see. And so I thought, I've got to go on a diet. And I said, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to find my own natural weight. I'm not going to judge my body no matter what size it is. I'm going to eat when I'm hungry, stop when I'm dissatisfied, use the EBT tool so I can do that. And what happened is food just became not an issue. And I would eat, sometimes I'd eat really garbagey food, but I wouldn't want that much of it. Or if I did, then I wouldn't be hungry for a while. So it all works out. But essentially, number one, you need to choose to release the extra weight out of one thing, self-love, not body judgment. That's the body judgment circuit. The second circuit is much, much more powerful, even though the body judgment is pretty powerful. What it is a protection circuit. And it can be a subtle one or a really strong one, but it's I get somehow my protection from holding on to some extra weight. And interestingly enough, that can be 5 pounds because that's who I am. I am that person who has that extra weight, and I need to have that weight on so I feel safe. It can be like 20 pounds. You know, if I lose too much, I'm going to have sexual advances. I'm not going to use my words to prevent those. I'm going to go ahead and keep on the extra weight. It can be a trauma from early, about 80% of people who have BMI in the 40 range have had a lot of abuse. And essentially, the only way that they felt safe was to have that extra padding. So essentially, keep the weight on. There's never anything in EBT saying take the weight off. It's you need to weigh whatever you need to weigh, whatever is right for you. But the body circuit will cause someone to have an extra 100 pounds or an extra 5 pounds. I'll tell you an example from my own life. I was divorced. I'd been single for about 12 years, and I decided, I'm getting really weird because all I do is work. And I think I'm really too old to date, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go on one of those online places, and I'm just going to go on one date a week. And I'm going to go for 1 hour for coffee or a glass of wine. That's what I'm going to do. If I meet somebody, great. If I don't, great. Well, in the fourth time, I met my husband. And we just knew. We had this emotional connection and we both knew it. And that was about 11 years ago. Anyway, my husband, Walt, was a little on the chunky side. And so what happened when he was on the chunky side is my brain encoded a body circuit. I get my safety from being a little bit chunky like Walt. And what happened was I could use my thinking brain and say, it's because, in that in love state, you're eating chocolate and you're having so much fun because you're, having
nesting,
a lot of
as they say.
Nesting, we say. It's funny that I didn't take the weight off after the first 6 months. I thought, I bet you I have a body circuit. So I found my body circuit, I rewired it. And then this is what's important. When you change the chemicals caused by the circuits in your emotional brain, the weight loss is effortless. It is effortless because you're biochemically different. And so I wasn't really aware that I was making different choices, but I just was. I didn't need the food so much and I lost that weight. So essentially, this is on all seriousness now. These circuits in our emotional brain is what makes or breaks our life. They get encoded there through no fault of our own. Just if we have a stressful experience and we don't process our emotions, it gets stuck there and it goes into long-term memory and we can't think our way out of it. And every circuit that you rewire, and most people stay with the method for about a year and they just keep on rewiring circuits until they're wired for joy. And because it helps with everyday stress, whatever comes up as well. But the idea is that we're really going for freedom because every single circuit that you rewire is an opportunity to transform your life, to feel spiritually connected, to feel powerful, and to be more vibrant than you can imagine. And it is so rewarding and fun because like the other day, I'm getting ready to go back and visit one of my children whose wife, he and his wife just had another child. I was all stressed out about it. And I thought, oh, I'm not in joy. What I'm going to do is use the EBT tools, which I did. And it opened up my brain and you can actually remember things that happened before. It just takes you back to an experience and you process through your emotions and then boom, you're free of it. I mean that. So I realized that my brain circuit was going back to when my mother had very bad health problems and I was the daughter trying to help her. And I got that same body feeling. I just processed my emotions and I spiraled up to joy and I felt closer to my mother who's now dead. I felt more in love with myself and I have self-knowledge of, my own personal journey through life. So by being able to use eating and weight as an opportunity to learn emotional brain training so that you have that kind of control and that kind of love affair with your own personal history, your own personal travels through this space and time that we have is what brings me the most joy. Because if we don't have that deep connection to ourselves, we can really trip out on all the things that are going on in the world and not live the kind of depth of loving experience that our brain is asking us to live. And that's what emotional brain training does. It gives you a depth to your own personal power that brings a great deal of fulfillment and joy. And it releases the extra weight and the food drive.
Yeah. And so I want to go back to something you said, which is that people tend to practice these tools for a year and sort of go deeper and progress in this process.
Actually, it's a 1-year program, but you start, always the program is set to give you a little bit of challenge, but not too much. And if people stay in for 6 weeks, they almost always stay in for a year because the emotional brain is the mystical brain. It is the spiritual brain. And every time you rewire a circuit, you say, is this happening to me? I'm not the same person I was before, and I like me better. And so they get a richer and a deeper perspective on their own experience of life, and they see changes in their health. Typically within 3 months, people will go back to their doctor because EBT changes our physiology. It's not just psychological. And their doctor will say, wow, your chemistries are much better. What's going on? They say, well, I'm doing this EBT thing. So you can have all sorts of unexpected changes because you're going right into your amygdala. And what you're doing is you're changing your biochemistry and your spiritual connection and your love of life. And so people stay with it and they love the groups. There are just 6 people in the group. And so you get to know these people and you're on the phone with them for 5 minutes here and there through our private phone system so they can help you. They'll listen to you for 5 minutes when you're stressed about something. So you have a support system that's private and confidential and everybody knows the EBT language. They know the tools. And so it's a beautiful experience.
Nice. And I think one of the things that's popping to my mind, so I think it's probably popping up for some of our listeners, is, I think sometimes we expect ourselves to flip a switch and be different.
Yeah.
And that's kind of to some degree what we're saying EBT can do, but it's also often not a straight line, right? So will you speak to a little bit of what the process looks like in reality of when we're learning this new way and in the process of rewiring?
Oh, it's really easy. It's always the same. You use your app and you spiral up for about 1 minute, about 10 times a day. You spend 5 minutes on the phone with somebody else, either listening to them or they listen to you. And for 10 minutes a day, you watch videos to figure out how to rewire your brain and how to create all sorts of different wonderful ways of creating joy in your life. It's a program. So you do the same thing, and every day there's a change and your brain starts changing, the set point starts going up. So it's very, very organized. It's very doable. And you just enjoy every day in terms of, hey, I just spiraled up to joy. That's amazing. Or I just rewired a circuit. I'm going to kind of just hang out for a while in my group and listen to other people. Oh, I'm ready to rewire another. So you all go at your own pace. You rewire what you want to rewire and let go of the rest.
Love it. Let's wrap this up with our rapid fire off-topic questions that I ask everybody who joins us. So first one, what's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
Oh, gosh. What's the best thing that I've done for my health? I got sleep.
Nice.
Okay. What's the naughtiest thing? I took a break from exercise and I just said, forget it. I'm just going to hang out and do whatever I want to do when I want to do it.
Which also sounds lovely.
Yeah.
If you weren't a health psychologist and professor and researcher, what would you do?
I would be a horsewoman. I love horses. I would love to jump horses. In fact, I just bought a horse and I'm going to learn to jump. So who knows what my future holds.
Right. Nice. What's your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise? Or you could give us a fiction book.
Well, my favorite book is one called Spiritual Evolution. It's a beautiful book by a great researcher. And it talks about how each of the emotions that are elevated, like joy and love and forgiveness, they are basically in the brain. And what they do is we are meant to have that joy, and stresses block that joy. But he documents it with beautiful poems and beautiful ideas about each of the wonderful emotions that are part of living a great life.
Nice. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Obesity, because I suffered from it for 20 years. I'm going to tear up. And you know what? This is really just a problem that should not be the way it is. We're just not treating the root cause. And instead, we're going to drugs and all sorts of other things. It's not that hard. Just learn how to spiral up to joy. So my dream come true is to turn around the epidemics of disordered eating and obesity in this country. That's why I'm here.
Likewise, right? If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
My superpower is I would like a magic wand where I can just go like this and create radiating joy all over the world, like a wand, just a wand, that's sparkling all around. That's what I'd like to do.
Nice.
That's what I'm trying to do.
I can't wait for that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is cleaning out the dishwasher, and that's why I married my husband, because he does it for me.
Perfect partnership. Last one, in your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
The next frontier in wellness is rewiring the brain for joy. We can't go anymore with one more medication, one more procedure, then another medication to take care of the procedure. Your brain is perfect. Your brain is designed and it evolved to be able to give you the beautiful array of chemicals naturally. And every person can learn how to rewire their brain. And once they have that skill, they've got it for life. That's the new medical care, EBT.
Fabulous. Yes. Well, thank you, Dr. Laurel Mellin, for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, find your books, get the EBT app, all the things.
Absolutely. We only give out the app through the website, which is emotionalbraintraining.org, EBT.org, simply because the combination of loving support with these support groups and the scientific skills is what really works for people. And secondly, I have a new book out, which is called 123 Joy, which says everything about EBT, lots of good stories about it as well. So 123 Joy is on Amazon, and then EBT.org. You come in, you get into a support group, and you start right away. You get all the services included with your support group, and you'll be starting to learn with other people how to rewire your own brain.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for being here. Just truly appreciate your perspective and your insights. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, Jen.
Absolutely. All right, friends. On Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget, we're talking about compounding consistency. So this might be a new phrase for you, but this Friday when the Nutrition Nugget bonus episode goes live, it's also National Extra Mile Day. And I thought this is the perfect opportunity for us to talk about this concept, compounding consistency. So be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when it goes live on Friday morning at 3 a.m. But, let the app alert you. It's easier. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideofries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. Dr. Laurel Mellin, thank you again for being here with us this week. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideofries to show your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, support your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the chocolate oat flour banana bread and Dr. Laurel Mellin's EBT worksheet. That's Dr. Laurel Mellin, this week's featured guest. So until next week, remember, our current tendency to overeat or undereat is hardwired in the brain. It's not a moral failing. And maybe the best news of all is that we can rewire our brain for health in mind and health in body. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.